Good day. Welcome back to yet another video. I don't even know when the last video was at this point in time, but welcome back anyway. Still working on that small block Ford, 363 cubic inches out of the 302 base Ford with that dark block. So yeah, working on getting that crankshaft installed right now. Show you where we're at. Got the bearing set up. I got the bearing guard in there everywhere, and I'm going to lay that crankshaft down, and we're going to check crankshaft end play, and then we're going to finish torquing them up the rest of the way, and we're going to continue on this build. So yeah, stay tuned. Let's see what happens.
You're beautiful. I'm recording.
Are you?
Yes.
Is it chunky?
You're very handsome.
Is it chunky? You're not answering the question. All right, so got the crankshaft laid into the engine right now. Just a couple things to note before doing that. You're going to be lubing up your bearings, obviously, right? What I'm looking for is between the bearing cap and the block. I want to make sure that I don't got a whole bunch of like oil and assembly lube or whatever in between there, because that's going to create a hydraulic wedge in there, you know. So as you lay you lube your bearings, lay your crank down, I wipe away any excess lube that's sitting on these cast rails here, these webs, because I don't want to have that hydraulic wedge in there. So make sure you don't do too much lube in the sense where it's all over here, and if you do, make sure you wipe it off so you're not dealing with that wedge. Next, when you put your caps on or your bolts in, and you're going to notice your caps aren't going to just slip right into place. If they do, you got problems. But it's a bit of a press fit in a sense. Keeps the caps located. So with that, as you put your caps on, you can tighten your bolts, but not all the way. And then you're going to want to use a hammer, or a rubber mallet, I should say, and tap that cap into place. And then after you do that, you definitely want to make sure and take a look on these edges to make sure that there wasn't anything that peeled off. And if there's a thin layer of anything, take it off of there and make sure there's no damage or anything to the main caps, obviously. Next, I got the dial indicator set up on here. So I was checking, just getting the screwdriver in here. So I was checking for end play, and we got about 5 thousandths on here right now. I also had the crankshaft laid in here earlier with, this might sound a little bit silly, but with bearing guard on all the bearings on the tops, except on the thrust bearing, I did not put any lube in between the thrust and the crank. So I put it in there and I just pressed it to one side and did the same thing, measured it, and I actually had just under 7 thousandths of an inch end play. So with the bearing guard in there now, I got about 5 thousandths. So it was like about 1.5 thou worth of lube that's sitting in between the thrust bearing there. So I've actually never tested it that way before. I wanted to try it this time just because the bearing guard is a little bit thicker, and I was curious about how much room that actually took up. So now I know. It was about 1.5 thou, something like that. So yeah, very good. Anyway, I'm going to torque this crank down. The caps are all aligned. I put oil, a little bit of oil on the threads of the bolts, and then between the head of the bolt and the washer, I put a little bit of ARP lube in there. What else? Your bolt holes going into your block, you want to make sure that they are clean. If you have too much oil in there, if you have some oil that dripped down into the bottom, you could create another hydraulic wedge. It's like the word of the day: hydraulic wedge, hydraulic wedge, hydraulic wedge, hydraulic wedge. But man, I am just not so smart today. But anyway, so you want to make sure that your holes are clean. and that your threads are chased as well. So you don't want to have any rust or any debris or whatever hanging out in those threads, right? So I think that's all I want to say about that. I'm going to torque those bolts down now. The center bolts are going to get 100 foot-pounds. The outside bolts for the splayed part of the cap is going to get 65 foot-pounds. And I'm going to get there in 3 increments, 3 steps. I'm not going to hit it in one shot. And I'm going to start in the center on the thrust bearing. Thrust first. So, like, seriously, how many times can I talk about this crankshaft, right? Well, I'm going to say another thing. I got another thing to say on the saying of the thing I want to say. I'm going to say it now. So anyway, when you get your caps on, all right, you got them seated, you got them aligned. Before you torque anything down, get them hand tight, you know, no torque. And then you're going to want to grab a rubber mallet and put it at the back of your engine, and then another hammer and hit that mallet to force your crank forward, or vice versa. And then you're going to do it again the opposite direction. And what you're doing is you want to center your thrust halves. Your top half and your lower half, they have to be aligned in order for you to get accurate and proper thrust play. All right. So I mean, if you don't do that, you just put them in there, they could be off from each other. You know what I mean? And now your end play is not 5 thou, suddenly you have 2 thou. You know what I mean? So you definitely want to line your thrust halves. So on that note, this crankshaft is done. It is installed. It is good to go. It is torqued down, 100 pounds, 65 foot-pounds, and we are dialed. Now hold on. It's time for the next step. Wow, this is just good stuff right here. All right. We got our pistons, CP Carrillos, ready to go here, and we got our rods that were also ready to go. We got our bearings, clearances all checked out. So we're gonna go ahead and mate them together with the pistons. And then we'll get the rings on. The rings are all filed, ready to go in their packs. I got them all numbered, which ones they were. And then, well, we're gonna slap this short block together. All right, so got the pistons and rods married together. They are ready to go as far as that goes. So, just get that facing the same way there. When you're marrying these things together, you obviously want to look at which side's got the chamfer and which side doesn't. So you can see, whoa, hello. Let's see if we can get you to focus at all. So you can see that side's got that chamfered edge there, right? Whereas the other side here does not, or not nearly as aggressive. So what you want to do, your crankshaft, the outside edge, okay, there's a radius there. And you want that chamfered edge to be facing that so it can clear that radius. So when you're looking at the engine on this side, you know, you want your chamfered side, your valve reliefs up, chamfered side to the outside of the rod on every one of them. You flip to the other side, now you want them all facing back, your valve relief's up, but that just happens to be the same as that side. You're just moving it to the other side, right? So when you're looking at it, chamfered side to the right, all the way across, and you should be dialed. So yeah, all good there. Man, guys, we have finally got some snow out there that is rideable-ish for the sleds. You know, this one's just aching to get out. Aching. Actually, it's me. I'm the one who's aching to get out. But it's cold, man. It's like, I know I'm a baby. It's, yeah. What is it, minus 35 or something? 36 with the wind chill? So, I don't know. I think I'll wait till next weekend to test the sled out. But, yeah. Should be fun. I just gotta be a little bit patient. Just a little bit patient. I almost shed a tear there, actually. Need to get out, you know, get some throttle therapy. the short block is done. It is done. Benito. Yeah, I'll show it to you. So here we are. She's looking good, guys. Looking real good. So, let me just talk you through a couple steps here. All right. So when you slide in your pistons, you got to make sure that your piston rings are oriented in the right direction. And maybe that's a loose term depending on who you're talking to, I suppose. But what I'd like to do is the top ring, the gap, I like to have it on the thrust side of the piston. Okay. I know I've talked about thrust, which side is the thrust side, in other videos before. So I won't go over it again because I ramble way too much, you know. But go back and look at those videos, or if you have questions on the thrust side, just let me know. But anyway, top ring gap, thrust side, second ring gap, opposite, non-thrust side. And then the oil ring pack, I got the expander ring, the gap there, facing the top ring. And then the oil, the top and bottom oil ring, I got them opposite sides. Okay, kind of towards where the wrist pin would be, the opening on either side. And then you also don't want to forget the fact that these pistons are quite shallow. The pin bore is up into the ring land area. There's also a another ring that they put in there below the oil pack ring set. My terminology is really on point right now. That way your oil ring, the lower one, doesn't go into that pin bore groove or hole. Basically just kind of keeps everything aligned because those oil rings are a little flimsy. So there's that. Then I actually had the crank, all the journals, all lubed up already as I was pushing them in, so I didn't have to put any lube on the bearing themselves. So that saves me, you know, some headaches with oil running down my arm and stuff. Not that that really matters because here I am playing with it. But then I got bearing guard on the journals. Slide your piston down, and man, if you don't have a nice piston, if you don't have a nice piston ring compressor, like, you got to get you one. They are a huge time saver. In the time lapse, I don't know if you could see it or not, but you know, I could just use my hand and knock them down nicely. Works so good. So good. But yeah, then put your cap on your rod and tighten up your bolts, just whatever. I got a small little end pack that I use, so just a little bit, a little ugga-dugga, mini ugga-dugga, hardly anything. It does is as good as hand tight, okay? Then I do that for all of them, and once they are all in, then you can torque down your rods, because you do not want to have just one rod hanging out here, then torque it down, and then go to put your other one on, because you're going to get some rod torque. So I always wait until I have both rods in, then torque it, because it can use each other for support, right? And then these ones, I have them torqued down to 70 foot-pounds. They are the ARP 2000 rod bolts. And I didn't go to stretch because based on the guide on this particular set here, it says not to exceed this particular stretch, which in this case was just over 6 thousandths. And when I checked it, we are sitting at about 4.5 thousandths. Somewhere in that range is where we're at on all of them, actually, between there. So easy good there. But yeah, so short block is together. What else haven't I talked about or rambled on? Clearance. This is a stroker crank. These are different rods. It's an aftermarket block though, so they do have enough clearance built in, thankfully. But you can see we got reliefs cut into the block, and you'll see it all over as we go along. And that is for this exact reason right here, because your rod bolt can actually contact the block if it's not clearanced. Once we get the camshaft in, it's on order, so it should be here, I don't know, a week or two, I'm not really sure. We're also going to have to check the throw of the rod or the crank, but where the rod bottom is to the camshaft journals. Camshaft lobes. As you can see, as the rod is down, it's getting low towards the cam tunnel, and we got to make sure that it doesn't want to hit that. So we'll check that. I'm sure it's got plenty of clearance. To me, it looks like we got lots of clearance. Oh yeah, like I don't think we got to worry about that. I know, like if you're doing a 383 small block Chevy deal, then you gotta watch out. Sometimes it's easier just to go with a small base circle camshaft and put that in there and done. But I've done them before where I actually had to cut and clearance the connecting rod themselves on 4 of them to get them past the camshaft. Whatever, it is what it is. Backyard stuff, right? But I mean, it works. Not ideal, but yeah, something you want to check anyways. Yeah, so we're good here. I think we're just gonna end this video off. I actually once again have no idea how much footage I have because I'm very oblivious apparently. But anyway, yeah, short block complete. Thanks for checking it out. Stay tuned for another one.